Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Chef Yusuf Show, where we learn to cook the Islamic way. We started an episode while we are cooking to show you this wonderful soup recipe which is called fish bourride or pureed or parood, wherever you come from, right? The cool thing about this recipe is if you learn how to make this soup, you can make any limited type of fish soup because you're going to learn the method of how to cook fish in a soup. Right? The cool thing about this episode or this series is we're teaching how to make soups throughout the month of Ramadan because it was a favorite meal of the Prophet ﷺ. Pureed, this cool thing about this soup is it uses mayonnaise or aioli, which is a garlic mayonnaise sauce to thicken. So this is a new thickening agent. We're going to learn a new thickening agent. We're going to learn how to use mussels. We're going to use some paroon or fish with heads. I don't know if there's any difference, and some white fish. So you can use all three. I'll show you how to learn. And in the future, whatever you make, you'll learn the technique, inshallah. So the base or the foundation for our soup is a good stock. And you have to refer to our first or second episode to learn how to make the best stock, because it is a secret to make the best soup. In today's episode, we're making fish stock. And the cool thing about fish soups is, you know, when you fillet the fish, this is not an episode about filleting the fish, but I'll show you how to fillet the fish in the future. But the cool thing about it is when you fillet the fish, you will always have the heads and the leftover and the bones. So you always will be able to make stock, wonderful stock, delicious stock when you make fish. Especially if you have a fillet like this, you will have a lot of leftover fish, bones, and you can make stock with it. You can make wonderful flavors. And as I mentioned, you refer to the first episode or second episode from our series. Forgot to mention, so what we did here is we are frying onions, we are frying celery, we are frying some fennel, we are frying some scallion and some fennel to, you know, balance the taste of the meri poire with the onion and celery. We had some herbs, and right now I'm adding the garlic in the end. And you know, if you read a cookbook, it'll show you maybe 5 minutes, but we want to do it in 2 minutes just to get over with. And while we were watching, we did fry some of our bread. This is a home toasted bread, homemade bread. We sliced it like a toast. We cut it in squares. We fried it with some olive oil, and we put it aside. Now this, I'm gonna go ahead and add some saffron, and only add saffron only if you can afford it, of course. If you can't afford it, what can you do? Nothing. So add some saffron if you have some saffron. If you don't, really don't worry about it. And you can see the color, subhanallah. And at this point, we'll go ahead and add some of our fish stock to our base over here. Okay, so while this is cooking here, we'll go ahead and add our wonderful fish. We have here some of the mussel. We'll go ahead and add it now. And how do we know when the mussel is done? Well, technically, when they open, technically they are done. This will not take a lot of cooking. And just be careful, don't overcook the mussel, because it will become very chewy and very exactly like a mussel, right? The paroon, because I have similar size of everything, so I'm going to put everything in the beginning, and whatever when the mussel is finished, I'll remove that first. As for the fish, we'll go ahead. You want to make sure there is no bones. We'll go ahead, maybe cut it. Maybe to smaller sizes like this. This is a white fish. This is a white fish, so we'll go ahead and add that. Maybe add some of our flavorful herbs. Maybe some more. We can remove that later. And the method to make any wonderful fish soup is not to allow the fish to overcook. What happens when the fish overcook? It will start to release its moisture, right? And you will end up with a dry piece of meat, which is tasteless, but you'll have a wonderful soup. So it kind of balances out. So what you want to do is you want to, especially for the white fish or the meat, to maybe get 50 degrees, 60 degrees and Celsius, and then remove it. So this way it will be cooked, but still tender, still locks its juices and the wonderful taste. As for the mussel, Keep an eye on it. When it opens, go ahead and remove them and allow everything else to cook. And as for the shrimp, same thing as it goes with the 50-degree rule, right? You don't want to get it to 70-degree, because that when you know the protein start losing, that's when the fish starts losing its muscle. Now, in the meantime, what I'll start to do, I'll start making our sauce. So let's go ahead and get some heat here, and let's start making our wonderful sauce. Now, while doing our sauce, we'll go ahead and take some of our flavorful liquid that we made. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and start mixing it with the mayonnaise. So the idea here is we want to add just a little by little. We don't want to scramble or separate sauce, which basically is a heavy mayonnaise with the garlic. Now, the topic of garlic, I did have a specific episode to talk about garlic, so we'll do have to excuse me. We'll talk about garlic in Ramadan. I know it's a hot topic you guys want to know about, so we'll keep that for another episode. For now, we'll focus on the topic of fish, and fish has been mentioned in the Quran 6 times, just to let you know. So the idea is you want to add a little of the flavorful liquid to the mayonnaise, and what we want to do is we don't want to shock the mayonnaise so it will separate. So we want to add it little by little here, and we don't want to scramble it, basically cook it, you know. So we'll add it little by little until we have a really wonderful, nice, liquidy, saucy, delicious sauce that can go with the fish. All right. So let's go ahead and remove the fish, and I'll show you a close-up. So before they overcook, let's go ahead and do that. And while we add it, let's go ahead and remove some of the herbs that we added. So basically we have some really nice, well-cooked fish, not overcooked. This is the rule in cooking. And with the stock over here is basically now is more denser in flavor than stock. We have some fish stock with some more fish and mussel and shrimp and some of the wonderful vegetable. And we are making the sauce using aioli sauce, which is a heavy mayonnaise sauce with some of the wonderful sauce that we have. And the other thing we did is we did fry some of the bread. All right, so let's go ahead and start to plate. Get yourself a nice soup or bowl soup, and make sure the flavor, you know, you should make sure you taste the sauce, you make the soup. Make sure to adjust the seasoning, add more salt and pepper if you need to. Go ahead and add 3 of the mussel, 3 of the the shrimps, and depending on how many people you're cooking for, so I have 3 pieces of the white fish, so I'm going to put 1 piece of each for each guest. We'll add some of the soup for the bottom, and we will top it off with our wonderful sauce that we prepared. This is the thickening agent from the mayonnaise or the aioli. Go ahead and add that on top, and presented with some toasted bread as a croissant. And there you have it, a wonderful soup that will teach you how to make unlimited type of soup. Let me go ahead and show this closer to the camera. Here we go. Very colorful. You have different types of soup, you have different types of fish, mussels, jamberi, the one with the long mustaches. All right, so this is what I'm going to present my guests in iftar time. What did we learn today? We learned today that making the best soup requires the best stock, and you do have to refer to the one or the first episode or second episode regarding that. And making fish from when you fillet the fish, you have so much left over, you go ahead and make the best stock with that as well. Cooking the best soup requires you not to overcook the fish, because the meat will get drier. The mussels, we know they are completed, they are done when they start opening. And the fish itself, if you have a thermometer or you want to make sure they are not too thick, or just basically they do not overcook it. This is the technique of cooking any good soup. We learned that balancing the flavor using mirepoix, for example, we didn't put carrots, we instead put some fennel to balance the sweetness with the onion and the salty celery. Using a thickening agent, we introduced a new concept called Eggs, we'll talk more about eggs in the future, especially egg yolks. It is a wonderful thickening agent. Egg yolk, in this specific instance, we used it as a mayonnaise, and we used the mayonnaise, and we mixed it slowly with the soup, and we mixed it well to thicken our wonderful sauce. As you can see, it is well thickened, well nice. You add that with the soup. Make sure you taste the soup before you give it. And this is the type of, the wonderful thing about mussel is, you don't have to struggle with your fork and spoon. Just go ahead and use your hands, because it is a sunnah to use your hands while eating. But eating soup requires you to use a spoon, of course. It is strange to see people not to use a spoon, especially when it comes to soup and other stuff. All right, so there are a few topics I want to talk about in this episode. If we do have time, we'll talk about what Ibn al-Qayyim said about the topic of fish, and he will give us all of the hadith, almost not all of the hadith, but many of the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ spoke about the benefits in fish and the medicine of the Prophet ﷺ. So let's go ahead and take a break. We'll come back inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.